Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the talk thing show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American, Black, Negro, colored people didn't find their way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm the host, the indigenous one, and tonight we're delving into a subject that we all hear about. We all know a little bit about, but we're going to get deep into it with this brother, Amani Bey, to break down these laws that we're operating under and how other people fall up under those laws, how they fall up under the laws and how they are protected by these laws, and how we are always shut out and scratching our heads and wondering what is happening to us. So I would suggest that you have your questions ready, because what this brother breaks down to you in the beginning, you're going to have some questions. Many of you who go under the foreign monikers, Christian, Muslim, blah, 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 this brother's going to answer a whole bunch of questions for you. Joining me tonight also into this discussion, we're going to have Tomahawk Tony, we're going to have Phoenix Moon, and we're going to have Rick Moon. So this is a 2 moon night. So we hope you guys enjoy it. We also hope that you will support African Americans and Africans and what we're doing. And you also shop, buy t-shirts. We have t-shirts for sale. We have ebooks. We have clothing that you can purchase from us to help keep this information going and help us get to the places that we need to be where people are requesting our presence. Go to AfricanAmericans.org, and you can go to shop4.truth. So, without any further ado, Brother Amani Bey, welcome, brother. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share the information I have with the people, the family there. Really appreciate it.
Oh no, brother. This is we're and I know you can see it by the kind of work you do. We are in a terrible bind, and so we're just trying to get people who have the knowledge to spread to the group to help, so we can wake ourselves up. Because what we're going through now, human beings shouldn't have to go through, especially us. So I really, really welcome you. And hey, man, tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you a little better.
Okay, I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. My grandmother,
West Side.
yes, my grandmother originally from Louisiana, and based on doing my own family descent research out of Mexico. And I'm also going to get a little bit into that Mexico connection, where a lot of us from those southern states are actually the original homeland. We came out of Mexico, and I'm going to share some information later on about that. So 1943, she went to California, and at that time, there was a guy named Henry Kaiser who was doing this, a shipbuilding, metal, steel parts. And so there were opportunities to work in Northern California, to work in the shipyards. And my grandmother and grandfather left Louisiana, went to California, first San Francisco, and then came down to Los Angeles. And then, I was born from her daughter. And I currently live in Japan. I've been in Japan now for 22 years. And I've always had a thirst for knowledge in history from the age of 10. And I just over time acquiring information and knowledge, I became part of some of the early researchers in the 80s, like your Ivan Van Sertima, your Dr. John Henry Clark. And but then, from there, you go up to higher levels of knowledge and information beyond that point. And I actually traveled with Dr. Ben on his tour in 1995 to what they call Egypt. And that was an interesting experience. So I spent a lot of personal time with him during that time when he was vibrant. So I got to see stuff from the inside there. And then I kind of started traveling on my own and gathering information and research, and I went to a lot of key areas on the planet, and lot of rare manuscripts I came across. So there's a lot of that stuff I will bring up. But what's important is what I learned, especially living in Japan, is that once you get outside of the United States, people are not in the crayon box. You see, so people deal with national principles, nationality. And that's what governs the world. And humans have nationalities, and each nation intermingle by contract. See, and so they have contracts, and in those contracts, there are articles, there are provisions that govern how they must treat each other, whether it's a citizen of a nation or a corporation of a nation. So, and when you get outside of that, you say, well, okay, wait a minute, this thing is a little bit different here. These people are dealing with national principles and all have contracts. Where's my contract? Where's my protection? If you don't have that, then you're not protected. So then you realize that it's impossible for a crayon to contract with a nation, right? Or an adjective to contract with a nation. So you start seeing things from a totally different perspective, and then you realize that we were set up and we're given information that purposely puts us off the course, off that paradigm of national principles and nationalities, and leave us unprotected. And then the question is, why would anyone want to do that to us? That's because those that are responsible for keeping us ignorant of that fact are getting a benefit. You see, so the key is, and they tell us, for example, you hear the term, African American, for example, right? So, and in history, and we're taught that we came from Africa, we descend from Africa. Well, if that's true, that would be a pretty good thing, because if it's true, then that means we can actually reclaim our nationality and get that back. Why hasn't that happened in centuries? Well, because if you say you're from Africa, then that means that you can get your nationality back, and then you can also be part of the nations and treaties and have that law protection domestically and internationally. But when you start looking deeper, you find out, okay, wait a minute. They say we're from Africa, but no one's said, let's go reclaim our nationality so we can also get protections. That hasn't happened for centuries because it's not true. If it's true, then you can prove it at law. So I'm going to get into something now that's called the law of return, or right of return. And it's a principle in international law which guarantees everyone's right of voluntary return or re-enter their country of origin or citizenship. That's the right. That's a law of return, international law. So if we were from a certain continent, and that is the continent of our origin, then we have the right to return there and to get back and to be made whole again at law, which means that nation must give us land and finance to make us whole again at law. Now, an example of this is the nation that was established in 1948, Israel. They have a law of return, and that law of return, when they set up Israel in 1948, and on July 5th, 1950, they set up their own Israeli law called the Law of Return, which gives Jews the right to come and live in Israel and to gain Israeli citizenship. And they're giving acres of land and finance. So if we, similarly, they say, oh, we came from Africa, and then they say West Africa, then they'll name some nation. They'll say, oh, Nigeria. They'll say Ghana. They'll say what else? Senegal, right? So if that's true, why isn't there, similarly to Israel, a law of return in those nations? Where they would say, okay, we have this law of return, and you guys can come back here, gain your citizenship, and at law, they must grant us acres of land and money. Now, Ghana and Nigeria, as you all know, very wealthy in energy, oil. But that hasn't happened, and no one's been pushing or fighting for that. Because it's not true. If you're from there, then just like any other nation, you have the right to return there and gain back your nationality, and they must make you whole again. But it hasn't happened yet. Oh, maybe it hasn't happened because they forgot about it? Did Jesse Jackson forget about that? Maybe they crossed his mind. You see, so something else is going on, right? So, and that law of return gives you protections, and as you know, which is based upon our Constitution, states that the supreme law of the land is treaties. Treaties are the supreme law of the land, and all nations have treaties with each other. And so, for example, there's what's called friendship, commerce, navigation treaties that all nations have. And oh, by the way, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, those names are recent names in the 1960s. So if they say they took you from Nigeria, what was the name of that landmass 400 years ago, or even 200 years ago, because it wasn't called Nigeria? You need to know that. Now, there's a treaty, presently it's called Nigeria, but the major treaty they had with England, for example, in 1884, was a treaty of friendship, commerce, but it was the treaty with Jockey. The name of the nation was called Jockey. So there is a treaty, a Jockey treaty with Great Britain. So if you're from there, you'd be able to tie and link yourself up with that treaty and apply that treaty presently to protect yourself. Because in that treaty, it has clauses that talks about, nationals from Jockey and nationals from Great Britain and what they can do and how they can, intercourse with each other via business, etc. And so if a Jockey national is in any British territory, they're protected. Their property's protected. They have the right to establish businesses. They have the right to take out loans to promote the life, liberty, and happiness of their family and their companies. So if that's the country of your origin, you have the right to the same protections of that under that treaty. But it hasn't happened for centuries because it means that law is not true. So if it's not true, then where are you from? What laws protect you? It's been right up under your feet the entire time. And so the thing about treaties being the supreme law of the land, and currently under the today's climate, we are always abused by other people. We're killed in droves, and we feel that there's no justice for the wrongdoers. We don't get a remedy, and we keep thinking that it's because people don't like the way we look. People hate the way we look. Well, that's not true, because there are a lot of people who look like us. They're not getting killed in droves and abused. For example, let's say somebody who's actually from Nigeria or from Senegal or from Ghana, and they live in Philadelphia, they live in New York, they live in Los Angeles. We can go add up the number of brothers from from America who were murdered where there is no legal remedy and justice, how many Nigerians can you count that were murdered by policy enforcers or police officers? They look like you. So if there's a feeling that, oh, they hate the way we look or the hue of our complexion, why is not happening? Because the majority of the people on the planet have melanin. But why is it us getting targeted? Why is it us when we feel that the law is not on our side? The question is simple. The answer is simple. It's because at law, obviously, you're not protected. Obviously, you don't have a contract. The Nigerian citizen has a contract with the United States government. Treaty of Peace, Friendship, and Navigation Commerce. And in that contract, there are provisions that state that a national in the U.S. territory has most favored treatment, has access to the court, and the law must protect him, his family, and his business. If that's the country of your return, you should be protected under the same treaty and contract that he is. But why hasn't there been anyone to stand up and to push for that? It's because it means it doesn't exist. It's not true. Now let me give you an example. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question before you get deeper into that. I want to stay there, but it was something you said in the first segment that I wanted to ask you a question of. So we have all these people now saying Ghana is wanting her long lost children to come home. Nigeria is asking that her children come home, and they're giving land and stuff to African Americans there. What is that all about?
Well, no, they're not giving land now. Now what they're doing is called right of abode. That's what it's called. So what they're doing to basically kind of give a crumb is called right of abode. All right. Now that right of abode is no different than the F1 student visa in the United States.
Gotcha.
Because a Mexican citizen can get the same thing, a Korean can get the same thing, a Japanese can get the same thing if they go there. It's like an F1 visa. Now, so it's interesting you brought that up because they're not giving land. Because there's they state that because the Americans who are called African Americans, we don't know where you came from, so we can't go that far now and give land or finance. So they give you what's called a right of abode, which allows you to basically, it's like residency. You can become a resident, which means you can live there, you can work there. But any other person from any other nationality or nation can do the same thing. So it's a right of abode. It's not right of return where they're going to grant you citizenship and your nationality, and which means they have to give you land and money. That's not what's happening. It's called right of abode. And so that right of abode, that you're getting residency to live there. They're not granting you any loans. They're not giving you any finance. Because remember, they say that we were stripped away from this centuries ago. That's an international violation of international law, which means the nation was at law, what's called they didn't intentionally allow that to happen, but they were negligent. So because they were negligent, they must make you whole again. They must compensate you. That's why they must give you land and money. That's not what the situation. So you can test that easily at law, because if they're going to give you anything back, which means they must compensate you for your loss and make you whole for those losses. And those are damages at law. A right of abode is just residency that any other national from any other country can get the same thing. So don't fall for that trick, because if they're not giving you damages for being negligent, that's supposedly what happened to you, then it's a bunch of fluff.
Cool.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because, and an example of that is Israel. So they take millions of pale skinned Europeans from Russia, Germany, Poland, when they set everything up and established the law of return, that law on July 5th, 1950, to allow all of them to return, gave them their nationality, gave them acres of land and money. All right? So if similarly Ghana and these nations are doing this, they're not doing that. There's no law of return where they're going to compensate those who were taken away centuries ago. That's not what's happening there. So it's called the right of abode, and that's just basically residency. So you got to get those facts right. So don't fall for that. So, but getting into the law here with treaties, there was a case, I believe it was in the 90s there. Latasha Harlins in Los Angeles was a young girl who walked into a store owned by a Korean and purchased orange juice, I believe. And I guess the Korean shop owner thought she had stole the products, and she pulled out a gun and shot her in the head, killed her. And at that time, there was an uproar there, and the law did not move in a way that the people wanted it to move into, and so a lot of people got frustrated. And it was a huge media event on the news there, and it caused there a lot of uproar, and people felt that that the law did not work for them. There's no justice in that case, and they again went to, it's racism. They don't like us. They fall back on that, but. See, those who want to keep them in darkness, they know about the treaties. There's a treaty. It is called the Treaty between the Government of the United States of America and the government. Hold on a second here.
Korea.
Friendship, commerce, and navigation between the United States of America and the Republic of Korea. So that Korean shop owner was protected by this treaty. All right, and just to give you a brief, just to brief you on this treaty, Article 1 states, each party shall at all times accord equitable treatment to the persons, property, enterprises, and other interests of nationals and companies of the other party. So Article 2, nationals of either party shall be permitted to enter the territories of the other party and to remain therein for the purpose of carrying on trade between the territories of the two parties and engaging in related commercial activities, for the purpose of developing, directing the operations of an enterprise which they have invested, and nationals of either party within the territories of the other party shall be permitted to travel freely, to reside at places of their choice, liberty of conscience, to hold both private and public religious services, to gather and to transmit material for dissemination to the public abroad, to communicate with other persons inside and outside such territories. But this is the key article. This is the key article here. Article 3, nationals of either party within the territories of the other party shall be free from molestations of every kind and shall receive the most constant protection and security. in no case less than that required by international law. And then this is the kicker, Article 6, right here. Property of nationals and companies of either party shall receive the most constant protection and security within the territories of the party. The dwellings, offices, warehouses, factories, and other premises of the nationals and companies of either party located within the territories of the other party shall not be subject to molestation or to entry without just cause. Official searches and examinations of such premises and their contents, when necessary, shall be made only according to law and with careful regard for the convenience of the occupants and the conduct of business. See, so we're basically, a police officer can't just pull them over, search their person, search their property without just cause, based upon this contract. They can't molest them. They can't physically hurt them. They can't shoot first and ask questions later because of this contract. So that Korean shop owner who shot that girl was protected by this. We didn't know this. And so what ended up happening? You had Korean businessmen right in the South Central LA on a Sunday at one of the churches there. And what did they do? Paid off the pastors. How much money? $2 billion. You never heard anything again.
Back up. Say that again.
Well, you remember that there, Mr. Davis. They paid them $2 billion.
Yeah.
The pastors. So, but we didn't know about this treaty. We didn't know, okay, wait a minute. They have this contract. Oh, that's why these Koreans come set up businesses in our neighborhood. That's why they're protected. No, we think no one likes us. No, we've been bamboozled. We don't have a contract. Because we're not a nation. We want to be a crayon. And we want to be triple stage darkness. That won't buy you a cup of coffee. Well, in the meanwhile, you got people of nationalities from different continents coming in and benefiting for their children and their companies off of us. This is no secret. Now, another thing about the Africa thing, we're from there, where our brother Moss Death, now Yassine Bey, who was living in South Africa with his family, and he was actually traveling with what's called a world passport, which was established in the 50s, I believe, and at the time, 180 nations accepted that passport. Basically, it's a passport where you're not a citizen of a particular state, but you do have the right to travel, which is an inalienable right. He was actually using that passport, but one day, for some reason, they decided not to let him use that passport. So when he tried to leave on that passport, and he couldn't get through customs, and they basically detained him. And then they basically told him that, well, this passport is illegal. So you violated law by traveling with illegal documents. So he was detained for up to 10 months, him, his wife, and his daughter, in South Africa, which is part of the African continent. So during those 10 months, if that continent was his place of origin, why didn't any nation inside that continent stand up for him? They say we're from West Africa, right? Why didn't any of those West African nations stand up for him during the 10 months he was detained with his wife and daughter? Crickets. No one said anything for him. No one said, "Oh, the law of return. You can apply the law of return, brother. Come on back to the nation of your origin. Come on back here. We'll take care of you." Crickets, nothing. And then in the end, guess what nation granted him sanctuary? France. France allowed him to go live there, and they granted him sanctuary. France, Paris. See, so, when people say stuff and tell us things, we fall and we believe it. But if we can't apply it and it's not true legally, it doesn't mean anything. And that's how you can test a lot of things by doing a legal by applying it to the law there to see if it's true or not. Because the law of return would have helped Brother Yassin Bey, aka Mos Def, when he was detained in South Africa. And by the way, when they kicked him out of there, they banned him. He can't even return to South Africa, by the way. I don't know if you guys know that. But yet he's supposed to be from Africa.
Well, so before we go on, let me just ask you this. How did we? I know the Africa trap and all these foreign ideologies that we fall up under. Many of us were still in that mindset. We can't even think clearly. I mean, even when we talk, we trip over our own tongue. These guys, Dr. Ben, Ivan Van Sertima, Renoko Rashidi, what was their reason? What was their reward for doing? Because to have us thinking that we're from a place 5,000 miles away, that would have us thinking that we belong over here and not have us focusing on what's happening to us right here. You can do that with the Greek fraternities, sororities. Everything that's pointed to us is of a foreign origin. How did that come about?
Well, I think that based on my experience and the information and applying the information, because we have to remember, even on where we're located in America, there were many nations. We weren't just all one nation in America. There's all many nations vying for power. So I believe that you have a lot of people who look like us, but were from that enemy nation that we may have been warring with, or may not have been on good terms with. And so then, when certain of those nations allowed those foreigners and contract with the Europeans, and when those Europeans brought the real slaves over, then what happened was a lot of people who presently today, whose main role is to keep us ignorant and in darkness, from my perspective, those are the enemy nations that we were dealing with in the past. Because you bring up Dr. Ben, you bring up Renoko Rashidi and Ivan Van Sertima, whom I know all of them, and it is, you can listen to a Renoko Rashidi lecture right now, and it didn't change from 35 years ago. Same images, same pictures, the same thing, no growth. He's pushing the same crap. So which means, now he's not dumb. He's very well read. He knows that what he's saying has nothing to do with national principle or nationality. He also knows that if you don't have a nationality, you could be in trouble. You don't have protections. He knows that. He's not stupid. So it obviously means that there must be a benefit for him to continue what he's doing. So that's what it is. So people have made a choice in their lives. Okay, all right. So this system, how can I best function and prosper under it? They made choices. So their choice was to take a benefit. Now, for example, when I worked with Dr. Ben in 1995, and there were, in part of our tour, 29 of us. And Dr. Ben gave those tours in the summer 3 times. and it costs just for the tour package alone $3,800. And when you get there, he took us to these shops. We had to spend all this money. And oh, by the way, his wife was an Egyptian citizen of the fair skin type. But yet you hear in his lectures and his tapes, he loved African women. But when you get there, totally different. But so his wife, family, uncles, they own all these shops and stores. He made us go there to go shopping and all this stuff. And then one time we had this dinner. We had to buy this formal wear, which was $85 for the clothes, and the dinner itself was another $100. It was just a financial grab, money business pipeline for him. And he made a lot of finance. And his wife made a lot of finance. So that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, how you can make finance. So a lot of these scholars put these books out, and their books are allowed to sell on the major stores, and they can get publishing from major publishing houses, and they can make finance if those books sell. But it doesn't mean that the information in those books are going to set us on the path of freedom and protection. So obviously, it was, they had a lot of self-serving interests, and in the final analysis. So, but now let me share this with you guys here. Now, this is a manuscript written in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, like a diary of General Thomas Woodward. Okay? General Thomas S. Woodward, famous. He's worshipped in military circles presently today. But you're going to hear a lot about him, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, in his diary, in his writings, he talks about many of the nations he dealt with in America. Misnomer, Yamasee, Chickasaw, the Mobile, the Alabamas, the Miamis. Those are, current English translations of nations. And he first starts off here where he says here, I have often thought that I would give you and friend Hooper a little sketch of what I have learned from those men and others in relation to Indian matters, but they are dead. And what I have heard and know would, in many instances, contradict what has gone to the world as history. And I do not know that mankind would be better off, even if I could undeceive and give them what I do know in relation to Indian history. So basically what he's saying is that what went out to the world about who the real Americans are was false. And he contemplated, should I undeceive the people, give them the truth? And he basically said, no, I'll let it pass. That's how he starts his writings. Now, on page 112 of this work, there's a physical description of the Yamasee during that time, which is probably the only physical description in print that's alive during the time of the 1800s. And it says here, he describes the Yamasees as having dark skins, coarse hair, thick lips, and as having inferior implements of war to the Creeks, unquote. That's a physical description of the Yamasee. Dark hair, coarse hair, thick lips. Nothing like the Hollywood Indian.
Can you back up off the mic or something, because we want to hear this, and you coming in broken. So we want to hear it. So can you slow down or back up off the mic because you're coming in broken?
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so let me read it again. Physical description of the Yamasee on page 12 of Thomas Woodward's work. The Yamasee He describes the Yamasee as having dark skins, coarse hair, thick lips, and having inferior implements of war to the Creeks, unquote. So here we have a physical description in print going back to 1857 of what the Yamasee looked like. But this is the kicker. In the same work, it actually tells you where a lot of these nations originally came from. Now, if you've never heard this from the so-called Indians on these reservations about the real history of the origin, because they don't have this information, and those are the $5 Indians anyway, right? So we already know what's going on there. But on page 68 of this work, it says this here, quote, De Soto himself, with a small portion of his men, some Creeks, some Mobile and Movilla Indians, some Choctaws and others, tried to reach Mexico. He promised the Indians that accompanied him that he could make peace with them and Cortez, or those Spaniards that had driven them from their old homes, unquote. Now, did I come out loud and clear with that? So here we have, this was in the 1850s, where they were telling Woodward of events that happened 300 years before, in the 1500s, where they were trying to make peace with Cortez, to allow them to come to go back to their homeland, Mexico. Now, this is interesting because now we have a link with all those images. And now the good thing about Ivan Van Sertima, what did he leave us with? He left us with all that terracotta, those facial images, that artwork, that ancient artwork of our ancestors in that part of the world. So now we have a link where it talks about many of the nations, the Choctaws, Yamasee, actually came from Mexico. In fact, in the same work, it talks about how Mexico, although we had kings all over in America, the king of kings in the house was in Mexico. So we have physical descriptions of what many nations look like, with having dark skin and coarse hair, and very different from the Hollywood image that we're fed from childhood. So we can kind of stop there. I know there's a lot of information there over the last 42 minutes, so we can open the floor to questions.
No, brother, no, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing what you're sharing, because this gives us a different way of looking at things. Because right now, what you see going on in the African American group, they all just caught in this religious and this Hebrew Israelite and this Greek type of thinking. And when they talk, I mean, to me, I don't even speak to them because they sound so dumb when they talk. And when you ask them to explain what they're talking about, they never can. And
right.
So that keeps the ignorance going on and on and on, especially with the youth, because the youth is kind of bringing a point of what you're saying. So what the youth ask me when in these colleges, in these high schools and stuff, one of the things that the youth ask me, and they want to know, how is it possible that we're broke as fuck, we got to beg for money to get to school, and these immigrants coming over and they driving SUV BMWs, they driving SUV Mercedes Benz, and my ass is catching the bus.
Right.
And so these are the questions, and I just let them know, well, you support them. You won't support me. I bring you information like this, and you say, nigga, fuck you. I can do whatever I want to, nigga, because I'm grown. That attitude and how we act and how we speak to each other, it alludes to what you're talking about.
Right. Well, the reason that the Koreans are driving Mercedes Benz and can afford and put their can afford the college fees for their children because they have a nationality and they have a contract. That's why, just simple as that. So they're backed by a nation. So when you go through Koreatown in Los Angeles, you see all the buildings and their business written in their own language. They have banks galore. That's because they have a nationality backed by a nation. That's why. They're not different or better than they're smarter than us. They just have a nation, a nationality, and a contract.
So what would you suggest? That the people, the Americans, what would you suggest their next move should be?
Well, the next move has to be a legal move, which means that we would have to seek legal remedy and sue those who are injuring us. Because to deny you your nationality, to call you terms that have nothing to do with nationality, is a tort injury at law. So you sue them for a tort injury, and then you declare to the world what your nationality is. American. This is who I am. So we declare it to the world, and we take our seat with the other family of nations, but we will sue for the continued birthright theft of denying us our nationality. And so when everyone, even the term calling you black or African American, will be a legal tort. Anyone who use those terms, you can actually sue them. So the change has to be a legal remedy at law, because you got to sue for a tort injury, because we're being injured daily, and we don't realize that. And so the only way to get remedy is you got to get recourse by suing for the tort injury that's been happening for decades, and then things will change immediately.
Well, cool. Well, listen, we're gonna open up for questions, and the panel that I have, they're gonna ask questions where they can get information out of you that would be very, very valuable to the listeners. Those of you who are on the chat, please, if you have questions, I will make sure the brother gets the questions so you can have a cool answer. So anybody on the panel have any questions, please, now is the time.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Halita. This is Phoenix. That you made very excellent, easily verifiable points. And it's always good to hear it from just this nice simplistic form that you put it there. I hope the listeners were really paying attention, and that should ease a lot of fears and apprehensions that they have just by hearing it from a fresh voice. I did have a question. I wasn't present if you have explained it already in regards to how you being in Japan and how long you've been there. Do you plan on coming back to the United States, to America?
Well, I mean, I come back, to visit and to spend time with my family there. But as far as my home base is here in Japan. My home base is here, and but I go back to visit once in a while. And I was there for business 4 days ago, so and I'm going back in a couple of weeks. My father is kind of ill, so I'll be back in Los Angeles in a couple of weeks. But
Okay. Well,
yeah, my home base is Japan.
Any other questions? Rick Moon, you have a question for the brother?
Yeah. I'd like to ask a quick question. Hey, I wanted to ask, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can y'all hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
yes.
Oh, okay. And I wanted to ask you, man, why do you have that Morris last name?
Well, no, it's not a Moorish name. See, the Bey is actually a title. And so, for example, when you want to talk about when they teach you about 1492 and Spain and all that, he was called the Bey of Spain. Like you have the Bay of Spain, and there are bays in America. So Bay is a title of kind of like how you say, like a governor. So for example, it's so it has nothing to do with Moorish. It's a title when you reach a certain level of knowledge and information. That title of governor applies, and so that's how I acquired the title of that.
So you're the governor of?
No, well, the governor meaning you reach a certain level of knowledge and information, and it's like acquiring a degree. So Bay is kind of like a degree, a title of an accomplishment, be it knowledge or whatever endeavor you're into. So like, for example, the Bay of Spain, that king who acquired that title, Bay of Spain, acquired that because he had more, he acquired more land and territory and possessions, and he acquired that title. So it's not like because of Moorish Science Temple, it's not connected to that.
So why did you take the name?
No, I was given this name from a family member. 12 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just found it kind of curious. I was just kind of curious of why do you use that name? You've never been a Moor and you've never been associated with the Moor.
No, I do. Like I said, I'm very familiar. I read Noble Drew Ali's work. A lot of he made excellent points, especially the points of us being the true Americans here. Also, we got to respect them for not also saying that terms that like black, Negro, all that, you don't want to use that. So everyone has valid information, and some of those. I mean, the Moorish Science Temple has been infiltrated and corrupted, since before Noble Drew Ali died. So that is something totally different. Now, those that are associated with that currently, many of them are also, obviously. See, I do a simple test to find out if anyone is bringing worthwhile information. Because if you're not about trying to get back to national principles and national standing, then I don't deal with you. So it's just that simple with me. So it's just that simple with me there. But I do keep an eye out on what's going on in the temperature, and I do realize that a lot of those that are under the Moorish Science Temple or part of that have put a lot of our people in precarious situations by, for example, there was a big trend where people would go out and seize a property and try to take a property, but they ended up getting caught up legally, and many of them went to jail, and so they're no different than those that are out to injure our people. So so you got a lot of problems and a lot of different thoughts of but no, I'm not associated with any of that. No.
Okay, one more quick question. There was a time that I was out of the conversation, so I missed about 10-15 minutes of your talk. But I do remember you talking about the Koreans and the nationality and all that. So I wanted to ask you, how about like a lot of these other groups that's been coming over here, like all of these immigrants that's been coming over here. Would you think that they would have something like that into play?
Every nation has a treaty with the United States Corporation. So remember, and this is how you know that the United States corporation has nothing to do with title with the land. Everything's for sale. You see, so you know they're foreigners because everything's open for sale. So yes,
Okay.
yeah, Koreans, Iraqis who come because Iraqis run the stores in Detroit, and even in their home nation, it's war torn. Nothing there, but they come here and prosper because they bring the nationality. They have a treaty with the United States government, and the same provisions that I read from the Korea Treaty. All nations have that same friendship, navigation, commerce treaty with the United States. Somalia, and Somalia, they're huge in Minnesota. Ethiopians, they all have the same treaty.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that just brought up another question now. So, how can we use this? Or I don't know. Like I said, I missed part of. So you might have discussed this, but how? But if every country has one, then we should be able to use one too, right?
Well, remember, many of our nations, we do have treaties. We have the oldest treaties because we have the treaties that we set up when many of our nations allowed the Europeans to come over, and they only came over through treaty. So a lot of, for example, you heard of the Pequot, right? Nation.
Yes.
And
Right.
they see this is another problem here because you got, for example, at the Pequot in Connecticut, who look just like us, but you don't hear from them. And they're one of the wealthiest nations, one of those doing casinos. They're billionaires. And so
Right.
whenever the United States government do anything, if they need to do kind of huge development on land, they always got to enter into contract and agreement with many of our nations. But they stay in the background, and they're also part of the problem because they want to stay in the background, get their little benefits, and keep quiet. So we do have the treaties, but they, a lot of those representatives from those nations are keeping hush and just collecting their money. So, they're like, oh, you guys figured out yourselves, but no, we do have the treaties.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So because a lot of the I read the little article about the Pequot, about them getting recognized and stuff. And I see because I'm a little suspicious of it too. Because I'm thinking, who recognized them? The BIA, the federal government. I mean, they're nothing to me as far as I'm concerned.
Right, but again, they made a
I mean,
choice.
that don't, I they on or what they doing, man. So I got my little doubts too.
Well, exactly, and that's my point of these nations make choices, and they decided that for their what they consider beneficial for them is to allow this system to keep operating with no resistance, and so they can get a benefit. They made that choice.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm thinking too. All right, well, that's it for me. If anybody else want to ask you a question.
Anybody else on the panel have any questions for the brother tonight?
Yeah. I'm right here. Hey, Amani, I appreciate you. The information in which you shared. Yeah, by the way, this is Tomahawk Tony right here. The information that you shared, definitely great. I've been, last year I introduced some information regarding defamation of character. And so what you referenced a moment ago regarding torts, that's very important. You know what I mean? Tort laws, from what I gathered, I don't have experience in legal application as of yet. As far as like going to courts and this, that, and other. I'm preparing myself for these things. But in regards to what I would understand, and this is my question for you, in regards to enforcing tort laws, right, such as defamation of character, emotional distress, etc. This is something very, very practical and something that can be done immediately to benefit our people, right?
exactly, yes, because remember, you can only be injured in two different ways, either via contract breach or tort. And with tort, it doesn't require a written contract. So then that's why you would use tort to seek remedy. And so Like you said, defamation of character, cause emotional stress. Those are tort injuries because it's not necessarily a written contract or agreement, but it's what's called an implied agreement. It's not expressed; it's implied. So, anyone defames your character, and again, we can take that there, tomahawk, and so, for example, when they say, "Oh, you're black, you're African American," that's actually a tort.
That's right. That's right. Defamation of character all day and emotional distress. If you know what it means, you know what I'm saying? If you know what's being communicated to you, I mean, this person calling you dead, they telling you don't have no rights. You know what I'm saying? They completely slander you. Then on top of that, by being done in public, I believe if someone defames your character in public, not only is it slander, but it's also libel. It's when they write it, that's when it becomes slander, correct?
Yes, exactly. And then there's also a fraud component, a huge fraud component,
That's
because
right.
they promote it through media, through writing, publishing books, articles, teaching it in schools as subjects. So
Television, YouTube. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yo, hey, Amani, I like what yo, man. Yeah, I definitely want to chop it up with you, man. You know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I love people that know what they talk about people, Let me ask you this real quick, right? So, a moment ago you said privately before we began the live, you said basically you got great experience, and so you're pretty much I don't want to really call you an elder, but you got me by like a good 20 right now. You feel me? So let me ask you this: in your experience, right? Nationally here throughout the Americas, as well as internationally, Japan, etc. How do you feel about the transition of time as far as like I see a lot of turbulence and turmoil. I see a lot of people that's hurting, suffering, etc. And I'm just curious to know your perspective on what you've seen throughout your experience,
As far as how things are changing?
Things progressing in whatever directions, you know what I'm saying? Because we still got the heavy propaganda situation. You know what I mean? We still got a lot of people that's getting their rights violated, all kinds of abuses towards our people. Foreigners are coming in by the millions yearly to the Americas. You know what I'm saying? And they have no respect for the people, no respect for the land. You know what I mean? So this is just what I've seen within my 30 years. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, for what I'm seeing now is it's already been happening where they're transitioning humans into something synthetic, into something artificial. Basically, you're becoming machines. You're becoming like a robot. So there are very few humans around. Is what I'm noticing. I mean, think about it. People are now. It's all about trying to say that nature's imperfect and we're going to create you. So people are getting artificial this, artificial that, removing parts of what nature gave them. They're even conditioning you to hate what nature gave you. You see, so that's what's happening now. So when now it's not even about laws that will govern human society, because they're creating something totally different, which would it's basically taking you out of there into something else that's synthetic. And so then you will fall under policy or what's called a manufacturer's what do you call manufacturers? What do you call it when you want to fix something? The manual.
Operations manual.
Exactly. So you're falling up under a manufacturer's operation manual now. So you're way far removed from anything that's dealing with human societies, because they're already, the majority of people are no longer human. Totally different. They control what you eat, they control what you drink, and they can put any kind of chemicals in there to change your actual DNA structure. So it's on a whole nother level now.
You're absolutely right. Let me ask you this, right? And I appreciate you sharing that. A few months ago, I did a presentation titled "Is it racism or is it truly speciesism?" Are you familiar with speciesism by chance?
No.
Okay, you might want to look up speciesism. There was a debate back in the 70s regarding it, and this is pretty much the foreigner's perspective. They're fully aware that there are different species of quote unquote humans. I'll give you an example real quick. So, you have what they call the Bible, the Holy Bible, whoever wrote it, right? And they say right there in first chapter, no, what is that? Second or third chapter Genesis, right? God created him. No, it say they created him and her, he and she, right?
Right.
And that was man. And then a little bit later, now I was talking about they made him man, and this is mankind pretty much. And if you basically I do a lot of research into different studies and all of that, right? So you have basically you have man and mankind.
Right.
And so how I view things is mankind is what they call humans.
Right.
Are you familiar with Ballantyne's law by chance?
No.
Okay, in Ballantyne's Law Dictionary, I believe it's the 1933 volume. I can't recall which one exactly, but I believe it is 1933 or 1923. Human is defined as a monster.
Okay.
Okay, and a monster meaning a lesser animal.
Right.
Furthermore, it says it references how a mother of a monster has no inheritable land. Also, another aspect of monster is when you have a woman that is unmarried, right?
Right.
And so basically her children are bastards, therefore they cannot be heirs. Now we're talking about law that was utilized throughout foreign nations. That's why they're so patriarchal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, here in the Americas, you know what I'm saying, our women are, we value our women. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We value our American women. And our American women, through them, you know what I'm saying, we able to continue pretty much life existence and etc. And so
Right.
and so basically I'm looking at is and I like your opinion on it. I just gave you those definitions real quick, just so you could be on the same page. Now, basically what I'm looking at, right, is we got so much propaganda via the Christians, via the Moors, via the Israelites. We got all this foreign patriarchal nonsense that has basically devalued, has shifted the dignity and created indignity amongst our mothers and daughters, fathers and sons. You know what I'm saying? And this is what it is, man. I would definitely like your email address because I want to send you a couple texts that I value and which I show in my presentations. But how do you feel right now about the condition of our American people? I mean, you're over there in Japan. What does it look like looking at us here in the Americas from Japan?
Well, I mean, it's like when I was there, last week in New York, and I mean, it's like it's sad because things have changed from 35 years ago in the States. I mean, we even looked physically different 35 years ago. We had a little bit more, how do you say, resistant nature about ourselves. And I think that it's right now to a point where, because it's what we drink, what we eat, it has such an effect on us. It's like we've given up. We've just given up, and we're saying, okay, we want to put it in someone else's hands to change our fate, and that's never going to happen. But now one thing we cannot avoid is the corporate nation influence. It's everywhere. And so we can never have sovereignty to where, now there's only one example of that, and it recently reared its head internationally in the media. The little island they called off in the Indian Ocean there, Sentinelese. That's what they call it. Now, you remember there a few weeks ago when that missionary was killed there, right, on that island there. Now, that nation, that is true sovereign power. Did you guys hear about that case?
Yeah, I heard about it.
Now, now that nation been on that island for millions of years. The media tells you 60,000. And they've been hold down their block for all this time, and no one's gotten there. So you get close, you get murked. So which means that they're the only nation who's truly sovereign and pure because they get to control what they eat, what they drink, their thought, everything, and they protect their block. And it's been going that way for years. So, go ahead.
Oh no, I was agreeing. I said that's right. I was agreeing with you.
Right. So everyone's trying to get in there, and they've been trying to get in there for centuries. And whatever's in there, they're doing it right. They want to tell you, oh, there's maybe 30 or 40 of them, or 100 or 500. What do you mean? So they're having incest? If that's the case, they'll be producing children with birth defects. So we don't know the number of that nation in there, and they're not going to let you know to begin with. So,
hey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
My apologies, I'm listening. Okay, yeah. So I have a question, right? So, I'm beginning with this part, right? So, do you recall? Did you see it a few months ago? That palace in Brazil was burnt down.
No, which palace?
I think it was in Rio de Janeiro. They turned it into a museum. They converted a palace into a museum.
Okay.
And it had millions of American artifacts in it. Now, reason why I bring that up is because what I've observed, and for me it's speculation because I'm not able to really verify this as of yet, right? So basically, over the years, especially since African American Africans has been growing in strength over the years and all of that, basically I've been seeing a lot of propaganda produced by the foreigners, various breeds of foreigners. All right. Saying things about native this, Native American this, and indigenous that. And now with this incident that took place on this island, right? I'm seeing this as it's like one of the foreign species factions, basically, trying to manipulate the minds of whatever people. Now, for example, right, when the foreigners see people in which they know are indigenous, they show these were brown skinned people, right?
Right.
And so now by showing that these are brown skinned people, it's like, yeah, these brown skinned people that are indigenous to this land, they just killed a Christian missionary. So get your guns, Christians. Get your guns prepared to get. I mean, this is psychological operations that I see taking place. You know what I'm saying? Just like here throughout the Americas, right? Just here in North America, I'll say, right? We got on the news frequently, no matter what city, county, state you're in. Whereas, yeah, a black man just robbed this liquor store. Get your guns. This black man is a rapist, or what I'm saying. This is straight up and down propaganda, and it's been proven countless times that that's not the guy who did it. And also, if I recall correctly, so we just had this incident that happened in the islands. Meanwhile, we just had a guy down in what was that Black Friday weekend a couple weeks ago. You had the dude over there. He's a military veteran, young dude, right? He goes to the mall Black Friday weekend or some shit like that. Part of my language, and somebody was shooting. He wasn't shooting, but he ended up getting shot in the face by law enforcement. Now, I'm aware of some shit called crisis cast, right? So yeah, it's basically you got these crisis actors. Now, for me, if I don't know the people directly, if I haven't spoken directly to the family, and I don't know nobody that knows that family, I'm suspicious by default.
Exactly.
I just can't trust what was being projected. You see what I'm saying? And so basically, my question for you is, how do you feel about this propaganda wave? I mean, for example, right? Back in the day, propaganda was based on, okay, I'm gonna say something to you, and then 10 people later, what I said to you was different. That's one form back in the day. Other form back in the day, you had to write it down, mass print it, mass produce it, and all of that. And now that propaganda does spread. It was snail mail. Fast forward to now, it's about a nanosecond. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Well, you're absolutely right, because whatever they say, you got to think the opposite. Now, so if there are Christian factions who feel they're going to go on some crusade and go in a blazing on our island, good luck, because it hasn't happened in millions of years. And if you think you're going to be the first to change that trend, good luck. So I don't even think they have the guts to even try to do it. So, but now getting to your whole deal about the corporate structure and that, and a prime example is that islands, Centenary Islands, next door, the next island over, right? Those people allowed the foreigners to come in. They're intermingling with the foreigners. And what's the example? What happened? They're getting sick, diseased. They're dying. There's a local police force that are shooting and killing and raping their women. So all this is happening to them because, unlike their neighbors who keeps everyone out, they allowed them to come in, and now they're suffering. And now they introduced a money exchange system where everything was free, that whatever they needed to eat or drink on that island, but now they got to go try to buy it with this paper note they don't know anything about. So the propaganda of, oh, okay, well, they create this monster image that we're dangerous and we're this and that, but it all falls to the basics where we being autochthonous to a landmass, we make a choice we're going to allow foreigners to come in or not. And if you look at the examples when we allow them to come in, that's when everything happens: disease, death, and destruction. We keep them out. Example in the Sentinelese Island, that's true sovereign power. They're free. So, yeah, I mean, we can use that example there. But, we did what we did. And so one of our ancestors came up with the idea that out of many nations, one, and that whoever thought that was a good concept, obviously, centuries later, is wrong. So maybe there was good intent in the beginning, but something that went wrong, and out of many nations, one, that's not the case.
Yo, I appreciate you. I don't want to take your time. And I know there's other questions. I just want to ask you. Can you spell the General Thomas? I have it as a General Thomas Woodworth.
Okay.
Because I want to read this manual.
It's Woodward.
General Thomas S. Woodward. That's WOODWARD.
Okay. Woodward. Okay, cool. All right. Good luck. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I like reading, man. So, we got an A4 book club also. So I don't know if you're on Facebook, but definitely look up African American Africans. We also have the A4 book club where we got various members that be posting some great text, and this one is a good one right here. So I'm about to look for this right now. But hey, Amani, I appreciate you. I'm gonna continue listening and taking notes, all right?
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted to put in there. I hope that people are really paying attention to these practical solutions to the things that we talk about. I hope that the way this brother is breaking it down, which brother, we really appreciate you. I hope that the way that the brother is breaking it down is in a way that is able to help you connect the dots, so you know how to do your part and play your part.
Thank you, Phoenix. Brother, I want to ask you to give out a way people can contact you, because you have a lot of people in the chat who was asking for your contact. Brenda McKnight, I see you. So could you give an email or something where people can contact you if they want to get more information on what you presented tonight?
Sure. You can contact me at email amani.bay5@gmail.com. That's A as in Apple, M as in Mary, A as in Apple, N as in national, I as in international, .B as in boy, E as in Edward, Y as in yesterday, and the number 5 @gmail.com.
Cool. Before we go, I just want to ask anybody else in the chat, wait, if you have any questions for the brother. You have a lot of people in the contact in the chat.
Yeah. I got a little question for him. I'm sure you've heard that in 2020 that we're gonna have to declare our who we are. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and any suggestions you might want to give to the folks out here listening.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, anyone of us could, I'm also working on this here. We can, declare our nationality to the family of nations. The matter of fact, that'd be a great opportunity, a great time to push for that. The whole declaring our nationality as the Americans and getting all that on the record internationally to where that is on the record of other nations and that's recognized. That's a simple thing to do. And it doesn't take, millions of us to do it. It could just take 3 of us. And then we can also put on the record that any denationalizing term, such as Black, African American, colored, Negro, etc., are tort terms, and you can be sued for that. So remember, you can take the gay community. So they're so powerful that if you call a guy who thinks he's a girl and you call him a guy, he can sue you. So they already got their stuff happening in just a few years. So we've been, around the longest, but yet we don't want to, become adults, men and women, and be responsible and accountable, because you have to be responsible when you're functioning from a nation or national principles. You have to be accountable, and that's not easy. But, that's what we have to do. And so in 2020, they're saying you got to declare who you are. We can no longer put on the census Negro or African American, because then you're saying 2 continents. Those continents have hundreds of nations in those continents. Which one is yours? Now, remember, right, if you truly come from Africa, any nation in Africa, and you do not currently have that nationality or citizenship, I deplore you to use the international law of return and to get your nationality from that African nation where you think you came from, or if you did the research in your descent line and you traced it back there, go back and get your nationality, because you can sue those nations, those current governments, and what's called a birthright claim, and get your inheritance, get your land, get your finance, if you truly came from there. I implore you to please do that. That's a good thing, because at least you can spot it and say, okay, my ancestors came from this nation here in Africa. So all you got to do as an individual is file a birthright claim to get back your nationality. That's simple.
All right. Also, I just wanted to say thank you, brother, for coming on and dealing with us tonight. I hope to hear from you again too, brother. And thanks a lot again.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Thank you guys for having me on there.
Amani, one more time, can we get your contact information, email address? Because people are still asking for it. One more time.
Amani, AMANI.BEY, the number 5 at gmail.com.
Hey, Carrie, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to say hello to your speaker, Amani.
Yes, hello.
And thank you for the information that you've been sharing with us. I just want to know, why can't Mos Def come back to the home of his grandmother?
You mean to America?
Yes.
He's back.
No, he can come back to America. I said he's banned from going back to South Africa.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. No, I didn't hear that, and I apologize. I just wondered. I thought he was still out of the continent.
Oh yeah, no, he was banned from returning to South Africa. He can't go back to South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, he can come back to America. He can't stop from coming back here. So yeah, but when he was detained and they um what do you call kicked him out of the South Africa, he France offered him sanctuary first, and that's why he went initially
Right.
to France and he lived in Paris.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Thank you.
he still has a home there in Paris.
Okay, on the 2020 census that's getting ready to come out, a lot of people um, may not know the exact bloodline that they're from, Chickasaw, Choctaw, or whatever, but they did, their grandmothers did tell them that they were Indian, that her grandmother was Indian. Now, for these people who do not uh, know the bloodline to put down, what do you suggest for them to put down? I know that there was the previous census, people wrote in because it was African American slash black slash Negro. And what a lot of people did, 50, I think it was something like 56,000 people wrote in Negro.
Okay, well, I wouldn't recommend putting a certain what do you call? My recommendation is the entire continent, American. That's it.
America,
Because
okay.
yes, put
Okay.
Yeah.
on the American. That's it. Because remember that is what we have to reclaim back. Because when you read that definition in the 1832 dictionary, originally applied to the many copper colored nations, plural, which means that there are many of us here, many different nations, but now apply to the descendants of Europe. They can't have that title.
Understood.
Yes.
Yeah, so we got to go for the whole thing there.
Okay. Okay, because I'm still, me personally, I'm still in favor of America, not in, but America, because I'm from America. America is my mother. So me personally, I would put America Negro if I didn't know the exact bloodline I come from.
But America is the continent, right?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, that noun is the continent. But when we want to talk about the human noun, we can't be the continent. So that's where you get the American American.
Right. But they've adopted American. So that's why I'm just saying me, you know, that's why I would put America because
Yeah,
I'm her
Okay,
daughter.
I agree with that because
it went
uh,
unchallenged. It
if
goes
we're
unchallenged.
I agree with that because if we are the people from the soil, then we are America. So I agree with her with what she's saying. I think we should go as America.
Well, you'll have a bunch of different choices to even get specific. You definitely are going to be able to express your race, but now you will also get to express your clans and those get a little more intimate. Um, and that doesn't have to be a corporate name. Your family can have their own seal, their own clan of who they say they are, and we all are related to other clans, which will then form a nation. Do you understand?
Right.
This
Yeah.
way, us forming a nation, this is how we be able to establish new treaties. Now we still did so for and that's for the ones that aren't able necessarily to find out exactly or specifically what tribe they are, because and then there's the other Indians who were pre-colonial and they can, establish their existence here before the United States was formed. Because
Mhm.
and just because you haven't found it now doesn't mean that you eventually won't.
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
So everybody under one uniform statement, you know, and I don't, if correct me if I'm wrong, um, definitely one of the requirements, it's a large group of people with strong bonds of identity. Um, and that's which possesses a shared or distinct historically persistent cultural identity. So that still defines all of us, even for the ones that don't exactly know which specific tribe they are, when everything that you have been able to establish on yourself keeps you right here on the land. So I don't
Right.
really see that as a big deal.
Right.
You can identify with non-corporate names that they've never even heard of because you're still related to the people that were here in these historical texts that may have been called something much against their chagrin at one point or another, whether they signed the treaties or not. So either way, they're still going to be able to establish some sort of new treaties and new things that we can have as we establish statehood as a nation.
Right.
That's
I
the
understand
primary
that.
thing we have to work on. So it's going to be whatever it is that you want to call yourself, and you might want to leave room for a few more things because you can. Um, it doesn't have to be what these familiar names are. It doesn't have to be those familiar names.
Right.
It can be by the river of the place where your folks was at. Whatever you say it is, if 50 of you say it, that is what they're going to put down that you are as a people on this 2020. So if you got 50 cousins that live within 100 miles or 150 miles of each other, and everybody's saying they are the same people of the same clans or family members, that's your tribe right there.
Yes, but I'm just saying specifically because I'm asked this all the time. What should people put down who don't know? So, that's why it just made sense to me.
I'm saying if okay, I get it. So I would say if your family lived on Freedman's Bluff for 300 years, then y'all would be the people of Freedman's Bluff. Everybody's gonna know who you are. That still would be enough. It doesn't. So it does. If you wanted to put American, you can simply put that. But because Negro has a designation somewhere else, I would say no to that. Only because they're not forcing us to acknowledge that term in order to prove that we are American. That's not part of the burden of proof for us.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well,
Do you agree with that, Amani?
yeah, yeah. But one thing we cannot let continue or we cannot acquiesce to is their commercial interest.
Hmm.
So, for example, Oklahoma, for example, right now, when the government at that time declared war on many of our people who were in part of that nation in 1921, May 31st, and when they bombed, their cities and buildings and all that, and went in and reconstructed them, did what's called reconstruction by calling them at that time colored, and the purpose of that was because remember, why did they target that um, um, location? Because up under the ground's oil. See,
Hmm. Hmm.
and the last, remember, in I believe it was '97, the last few remaining survivors of that war went to the Oklahoma Supreme Court to try to get reparations. They were denied. Why were they denied? Because they came at that time as black, and that they're not recognized as a nation. So the Supreme Court, ruled against them. And see, the idea is that land that these companies are benefiting off of since they won that war has been decades. But those are the land of those ancestors who are from that area. So the descendants have a right to reclaim that land.
Mm-hmm.
So they must claim whatever nation controlled that part of that geographical area. They have to get back and properly get back their interest and control and ownership of that land right there. And the only way to do that is you have to be declared the nation that had the control of the land in that during that time, right? So that's also important. So America is the full scope, but you got to pinpoint the certain clan nation names that controlled and lived in a certain area to get back controllership in your inheritance, because inheritance is key.
Right, but like I said, well, Negro is a racial term for the people who know that their grandmothers and who they know that the grandmothers were the indigenous people. Um,
Negro is black and
just finish. Let me just finish, please. Negro is a whole collective of people. It's a whole collective. I mean, Negro goes from how far? This entire continent that the people were known as Negro, who had Indian grandmamas.
well, Negro is black, right? You know, when I went to Spain, I went in the car. My car was Negro. It's an adjective, means black.
It's still a racial term applied to the people on America's soil, though.
No, but it's still a pejorative. It's not. It doesn't represent a nation or anything. It's just an adjective, a descriptor of a noun.
Right.
So we're right back in an area to where that doesn't. You know, we want to use names that will connect us to land. You know, just like other nations. And so we want to benefit and have the same benefits that other nations have. We don't want to put ourselves at a disadvantage.
I hear you there, but don't you think that also is a exclusive term that only we could that only applies to us?
No, because we didn't call ourselves that. We were labeled that by social engineers.
Right.
So Europeans are not Americans. But if we don't dispute that or challenge that, it goes unchallenged, and we acquiesce to it, and they can continue to perpetually reap the benefits of being Americans. We got to get our own benefits. We can't just acquiesce and let them take our benefits. That's what's happening.
Are there any more questions from the panel? Well, cool.
Oh, no.
Cool. Well, Brother Amani, listen, man, I want to say thank you again. You know, what we try to do here is just bring information like that so people who are stuck in old information, they can update what they know. Because that's one of the problems that we have. The elder generations is not giving the younger generations informations where they can move forward. We stay stuck on shit for 100 years and won't change. We'll say Santa Claus is coming to town when we're 4 years old, and when we're 94, we'll be singing the same song. So that's why I do what I want to do, because I'm tired of seeing us getting kicked in the ass every day.
Right. We appreciate you.
Brother, one more time, could you give your email out to the people so they can contact you if they want to reach you?
Okay, it's AMANI.BEY5@gmail.com.
Cool, brother. Well, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you for sharing what you know. And I'm sure a lot of people picked up, got something out of what you shared tonight.
Well, I'm very, very honored, and it's been a privilege to be here with you guys. You guys been doing a lot of great for many years, and you are appreciated.
Thank you
So
so much.
yes,
Thank you, brother. And I just want to share with the audience, please visit us at AfricanAmericans.org. We have ebooks, talks about a lot of information that this brother just shared. You can share that. You know this is the holiday time. You can share that. If you do it now, just say this program, you listen to this program, and I'll send two one. We got original African Americans Ain't African T-shirts. People been buying them up, and they really look cool. It's really cool to see people take pictures of themselves in the T-shirts and send them back. Also, please shop and visit a4truth.com. Got a whole bunch of products. I mean, off the hook clothing that you're not going to see anybody where else because nobody looks at us how we look at ourselves. And remember, if you use the promo code at A4 Truth, shop A4 Truth. If you use the promo code A4 Ebony, you get 15% off. So check us out, support us, and we're going to keep bringing you information like the brother you heard tonight. So we hope you enjoyed tonight, and we'll see you in a couple of days because we got a couple of more things we got to talk about that'll hit very home. Please, if you have children that can comprehend, please let them listen too. Because when we find out the children get the information at a young age, they grow up with it and it'll never leave them. So thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time. Peace.